Now, this is the time to let's start with our first panel of discussion, which is Beyond the Pandemic Push, Building on the Momentum. As we all know, guys, the proliferation of digital technologies during the time of pandemic has been critical in triggering structural alterations in the media and entertainment industry. And it has proved to be a game changer for the industry as well. The government recently changed some new rules to regulate OTT platforms, and 5G will further propel the digital entertainment industry. Now, talking on many such issues, we have a panel of speakers with us who are very esteemed experts in their respective fields. So, we would like to welcome Mr. Amit Dhanuka, Executive Vice President, Lionsgate, along with him, Mr. Chandrashekhar Mantha, Partner, Deloitte. We have with us Ms. Gunjan Arya, Chief Executive Officer, OML, and Mr. Manish Kalra, Chief Business Officer, Z5. Alongside, we have Mr. Siddhartha, CEO of Hungama Digital. Welcome all of you. And we have with us Ms. Shradha Agarwal, COO and Strategy Head of Great Digital, who will be moderating the session. Over to you, Shradha.
Thank you, Namita, so much. Hi, everyone. So today we have a very interesting panel where we are going to talk about the topic which I think everyone is tuned into, not just professionally, but personally also. So before we go there, let's see who all we have on the panel today. And I think while Namita has done a round of introduction of who they are, I would want to do it in a different manner, where I would like to take their names and ask them one question, which is, which one have been your favorite series on any of these OTT platforms, and which series did you finish in one night? So let's go in alphabetical order. Let's start with Amit. Amit, which one was your favorite series and which one did you finish in one single night?
The recent one that I can remember that I finished in one single night was Normal People, on Lionsgate Play, of course. So, yeah, that's the one that I can remember.
So next, let's go to Chandrashekhar Mantha. Which one did you finish in one single night?
Well, I finished most of them in one single night, unless they are too long. But the recent one that I can recollect is, I saw actually something which was regional. I think I saw Samantha too. Okay, and on MX, and that I think was very unique sort of content that came. Coming from regional, I was really taken back.
That's nice. Let's go to Gunjan now.
Hey, hi everyone. I think this is a bit of a googly question because everybody's wondering, hey, do I pick a show from my stable that I've put out, or do I just genuinely be honest and reveal my watching habits, which otherwise most people don't get to know of? But personally, I really enjoyed Good Luck last year. And it's something that, given the lockdown, we were able to watch with family and all of that. It was just super, super enjoyable. But I think from something that I just had to finish in one sitting, it would have to be Squid Games, which is all the rage right now.
Nice. So we have both the answers from your name to the designation. But that's nice. Let's move to now Manish. Manish, which one did you finish in a single night? And is that from Z5 or is it from another platform?
Yeah, I think I'll call out Sunflower. It was amazing family drama with a thriller. We saw very, very good consumer response in that series. So I would recommend all of you to go and watch it.
Great. Thank you so much. And finally, Siddharth, which one do you finish in one single night?
So actually, I'll be probably the one out here where for me, it was Ted Lasso on Apple TV+. Amazing series. The second season came out, I think about 3 or 4 weeks back, but really fun viewing. And it was a great series. Yeah.
Very interesting. So while we know now what did they watch on the personal front as well as the professional front, let's start with the today's session. We all know that India is a market that loves to watch free content, right? But it took a good amount of time to start them paying regularly for cable. Now imagine they need to pay for OTT as well. Today, if you look at 2020, we basically now have approximately 41 million paid subscribers, which was only 18% in 2018. If you compare this with TV gets 63% of the revenue that comes from pay and then 37% from advertisement, whereas it's completely opposite for OTT, right? 60% of our revenue comes in from advertising and 36% or 40% odd comes from subscription. So if acquisition is one of the key important things for us as an OTT platform, what do you think drives that? So let's start with Chandrashekhar. Chandrashekhar, what do you think are the drivers and trends that impact customer acquisition cost, and how do you get these consumers who came as freemiums to convert them into paid subscribers?
Well, that's the $1 million question everybody's trying to answer, right, Shradha? And I wish we all had the answers to get that resolved. But quickly, what are the drivers here for the customer cost acquisition, right? I mean, you have what is the spend that you incur to get the customers on your platform, and secondly, how soon do they, or how long do they stick to your platform, right? I mean, that is something that largely drives customer acquisition costs. Now, in terms of where most of the OTTs are currently, they are trying to build viewership. They are trying to build stickiness to the platform. So they are incurring a lot of costs in terms of acquiring the attention of a customer, right, or a subscriber. So there is a lot that is spent at this point in time just to garner eyeballs and ensure that you get enough subscribers on your platform. So that is currently high. Having said that, what has happened in the pandemic is that intuitively people have moved from have spent a lot of time on the OTT platform. So to some extent, those costs would have gone down in the last 1.5 years, given that customers are by default moving to a different platform. They're spending a lot more time on the OTTs, right? So to that extent, that would have settled. But having said that, it's still something that will continue to increase in the next few years. Still, a loyal set of customer or subscriber base is kind of attracted by individual OTTs. In terms of churn as well, there is very limited. There are very limited switching costs for customers, right? Today, I can easily subscribe for a month on a platform, move on to another platform, and keep jumping till I find the right set of platform which kind of caters to my viewership needs. So the churn at this point in time, and given the sensitivity in terms of pricing that an Indian viewer has, the churn is also pretty high. I would subscribe for IPL for the next 3-4 months and then move on to another platform where there is more interesting content. So till the market sort of settles in a space where both these drivers are kind of stable, the customer acquisition cost, in my view, will continue to increase and only in a few years come to a stage where most of the OTTs are comfortable with that. So that's on your first part. In terms of moving people from free viewership to paid viewership, again, there's a whole lot of factors, Shradha. I mean, it's a very broad sort of a question which requires a lot more in-depth analysis. But largely, if you see, it's the content, right? I mean, if you have the right content, if you can attract customers or subscribers with the right set of content, you would have more stickiness, and people will be compelled to pay for viewing content which they want to see. Having said that, the customer experience, what the app or the OTT offers in terms of transferability between platforms, or how well it is adapted for a mobile viewing to a tab viewing on across platform or across devices, that is very important. The in-app experience is very important. So there are a lot of factors that drive people to prompt people to pay for a particular platform. I'll quickly stop there and then look forward to hear from others as well.
Interesting drivers. I would want to take this to Manish because I could see Manish smiling in the start. I'm sure some numbers must be hitting his mind. I want to understand that, Manish, has the cost of acquisition for you reduced after pandemic, like from 2018 to 2020? And as he said, to convert any consumer from a free to a paid subscriber, it's the content. So which series or which show of yours actually got you less cost per user?
Interesting. I was smiling when our friend Chandrashekhar said the cost of acquisition would have come down. I think it's just that appetite to acquire has gone significantly higher. So while there is a transition which is happening, we are like looking at much more and multi-fold acquisitions. So it never goes down. But I think it's important to address that question. What does it take to subscribe? I think two points I would make. A, obviously, customers the king. They need to like you. They need to like your brand, your platform. And B, content in our world is the biggest king. So if you have compelling content with real relatable stories, which connects with this consumer, they would definitely want to come and sample you and pay for that subscription. Now, how and where do you kind of acquire them? So from our perspective, I'm giving you some internal insights. We use a lot of data to identify, hey, this taste cluster is kind of more relevant to this customer audience, and this is how we should pitch it, and this is how the communication should be for this type of a show. And then accordingly, basis that analytics and insights, we kind of define the marketing plans and strategies. And obviously, objective remains to minimize that cost and acquire as much through organic buzz and drive the subscriptions in the right way. For us, two factors which work in our favor, Shradha. Number one, most importantly, we are also an award platform. So by virtue of having a lot of content from the mothership, which is the Z Network, we get like hundreds of shows or episodes which get dropped on the platform every day. And that's where you see our like MAUs are 80 million plus. You will see another bigger number coming in very soon. But the point here is that, hey, how do we build this funnel from AWOD to SWOD? We kind of give them the right inputs, do the right recommendation, personalization, and ensure that on platform itself, we are able to organically convert as many free viewers to subscription viewers. I think second most important point is that, hey, how do we pitch to them? I think I touched upon it, the communication, the targeting, the drive. You asked another question, which content delivered the lowest cost of acquisition, which is exciting, and I'll reveal it for you. I think the big bhai, Salman Khan, he obviously has such a huge organic following in itself. So Indians are crazy, and it's kind of an event that, hey, on Eid, his movie has to go live. So from that perspective, we leverage that all the buzz and the drive and the fandom. And in terms of actual cost per subscription, Radhe was the lowest cost per subscription for us. So yeah, that's your answer.
So if we understand that Salman really works for the Indian market, let's take this to Amit and understand, when you are trying to bring this whole global premium content to the country, how are you managing cost per acquisition? Because clearly Salman can drive that. And I want to understand if there is a star from the global world who can drive that low cost of acquisition for you also.
So I do want to sort of add that, our global strategy has been that when we enter a market, we of course bring, our premium curated hero content, to the market. But eventually we start padding it up with local content. That takes time to evolve. It takes time to create and make, and for us, that journey starts next month, when our Indian originals start coming out. But in terms of customer acquisition cost, I'll tell you out of my experience what I've seen, right? I've seen, number one, what plays out is content. If you have good content, you have compelling content, consumers find a way to reach your platform and see it. That's important. I think the second piece which plays out really important, which is very important, is how you build a brand out. Because, if your brand is not known, people have a subconscious mindset of always going to the first 2 or 3 that launch in the country. It's almost like sort of mineral water, where people will still go and call Bisleri instead of, asking for mineral water. And that plays out. And I think the third part, which is very important, is that while, you are solving for compelling content, you're solving for, the brand being sort of known and, established, within your target segment, you're also available at the consumer touch points when they're making that decision to buy. And whether that's through UAC, whether it's through Facebook, whether it's through affiliates, it's through different mediums that you're actually going and spending on. And eventually, look, it takes time, for that customer acquisition cost to come down, which would be true for all my friends in this panel. And eventually you start seeing it play out, right? So yes, there would be a piece of content that will deliver you far better economics, than others. But eventually as a business, you start looking at it, that what does it deliver to you, day after day, week after week, month after month, and what is the target that you're really going after from your business plan perspective. And then, of course, there are external factors, right? I mean, we recently had RBI come in and say that, hey, look, no recurring transactions. We sort of had banks sort of, pull that away. So that threw everyone in a dizzy, right? I mean, free viewing period went out of the window. So all of those pieces also sort of, work when you're looking at your customer acquisition costs. And you have to play all of these. You have to juggle all of these multiple balls to make sure that you actually come to a sweet spot. There's never a sweet spot. That sweet spot is always lower. But eventually you start going towards that and, finding a way to get there.
Oh, that was interesting. And I really like this conversation about the RBI, because I know this is not just a problem of our OTT as a platform, but every app today, right? Which is very well done in US and Europe market. Now that we understand all this, I think Gunjan would be like, oh, thank God, I don't have to bother with cost of acquisition on a platform. So let's go to what is the content that works on these platforms, right? And Gunjan, you guys come up with really bizarre, random, cool concepts. I really love Raid Nights. And I think with GCN, you guys are able to offer a lot what that comes to India and different kind of content that India wants. So what do you think? What genres work today for the country in terms of content?
So we haven't obviously worked at the end of, say, a Salman Khan or a cricket where, they end up just becoming religions for the country, right? But what the principle that we've sort of applied is, let's study user behavior, user trends, and figure out what's working there, and whether that's then applied to content we build for OTT platforms or for brands. That's been a common trend across the board. So I think, just in terms of your earlier question, which is how does user acquisition work? It's literally that. Initially, when an Amazon Prime Video or Netflix came to India, we were one of the first few partners that started working with them, because we were already creating a lot of digital content that consumers were used to. So you looked at, hey, here are users that are already consuming content digitally. They are the lowest hanging fruit. How is it that we migrate them to our platforms? And obviously, as OML, we haven't had a chance yet to work with Lionsgate and Z5, but I can only speak from my experiences with the other platforms. So that's on the platform side, right? Where we're constantly tracking for, okay, this is what the slate looks like. These are the shows that are not getting made. We know that those audiences exist. And as a platform, I think it becomes, and I'm obviously speaking on Manish and Amit's behalf, I apologize. But at least what we've heard on our side is that it's a rolling target, because not only do you have to first acquire your set of customers that will consume X type of content, but then you've got to keep them there. So you've got to keep on building on that category or that genre more and more. While that exists, overall, there will always be shifts in terms of what pops. So whether it was Scam 1992 that did really, really well last year, and then we got a bunch of briefs that said, hey, do you have a show, something that, which could be our next Scam 1992. So there is now suddenly an interest in that space. So there will always be markers like this that lead to trends popping. But overall, I think it's really important to just pay attention to what folks are already consuming and build on top of that. That said, I don't think that you can purely look at digital research as your output. So you can't just say, hey, so many people are consuming cricket content, so let me put up one more cricket match. That's not going to be enough. But use it as a brief. So the inherent human effort to use that and then build on top with creativity still needs to happen. But I think the briefs are getting sharper thanks to all the data that we have.
That's nice. So while you touched upon the fact that, yes, content and cost of acquisition help each other, and hence you guys come on board from that perspective as well, I want to bring in Siddhartha now. And I want to understand that you guys just moved into Sri Lanka and expanded content with Sinhala and Tamil. And even in fact, Chandrashekhar mentioned about the fact it's not just or even Amit mentioned the fact that regional content is another big play. So in content, apart from genres, what do you think the language has to play as a key role in terms of driving customers and even increasing stickiness?
So, I mean, there is no doubt that, we're all aware about consumption, each of us in that sense. We're aware that roughly 50+% gets consumed in the Hindi speaking markets. And then there's a very large portion that gets consumed in regional. As each of us are going out, at least from a Hungama perspective, when we go into regional markets, we are very clearly focusing on two priority markets. And I'd call them as a set of states which are there where you're building content to go after that state. And that opportunity is directly linked to Shradha, to the kind of language that you want to cater to. Take, for example, Sri Lanka. In Sri Lanka, what we've done is we've done the full gamut of experience, where we've got the movies, we basically bought into future rights into films. We've got a couple of series that are being produced. We've also done series in India, and because they consume culturally a similar format of content type, we have the ability to take content and dub it for Sinhala and make that available out there. They're also a large consumer of Tamil content because the north of Sri Lanka has a very large Tamilian population out there. And there, again, there are synergies. So you're able to build out an interesting bouquet with the users out there. And then you're working towards ensuring that you're being able to create a proposition week on week, month on month, where then the larger opportunity and retention gets driven. So that's where some of the interest lies. And it's a very organic growth when we are looking at our neighbors around India, because there is a very large overhang of Indian content that which way they end up touching because of the broadcast experience out there.
So I am also assuming that something is also happening within our southern countries. And today people are looking forward to Telugu, Tamil, Malayalam as a key content piece. And I always had this question in my mind when I used to present media plans to my client: who is watching this regional content? Are these people who doesn't know Hindi or English, or are these people who actually know Hindi, English, but they enjoy regional content because that's their native language? And what percentage? Like, I know people enjoy their native language, but what percentage of these users are who are watching regional language despite of knowing 3 languages?
So, the way I look at it over here is that, take, for example, Gujarati. There is content that's being made in the Gujarati language, but they're a very large consumer of Hindi as a language. You switch this to Bengali, the Bengali consumer consumes Bengali content. But if you even look at data on the dubs that are happening on Bengali language for Hindi content, there is a very large consuming community that consumes the same content in the Hindi form as well.
Okay.
Okay. Except for the south of India, where a Tamil consumer may not understand Hindi as a format and may not consume, but we are all aware of how dubs for South Indian films has done to the broadcast ecosystem. And that is for real. So today, when you go to Hungama Play, we have over 1,500 films from the south that are available in Hindi as a format of language. Or when we have Hindi content, if there are dubs available for South Indian languages, we want to make that available. We're doing it extensively on the Hollywood franchise, the transactional VOD, where we break latest Hollywood titles which are broken same day with the US. In that context, we get all the 4 South Indian languages, including Bengali, become the mainstay. So today, if you were to go and want to watch Mortal Kombat's available in all languages.
Yeah.
So do not necessarily treat that it has to be only in English. The languages play a very important part to broad base the community, and middle India is where consumption is happening. 350 million people consuming some form of video today.
Yeah.
Okay, and let's also be very true. Now, we are aware of where that 40 million plus consumer bases have turned out. Today the telco ecosystem, be it the larger OTT players, we are all aware of how they are funneling the opportunity for us, because they are making that available to their users as part of their pack set.
I think that's very interesting. And I like the reference where you mentioned about the fact that how you take a Hollywood flick and you convert that into English language. I want to take that to Amit again, and I want to understand Lionsgate is a platform where I understand things will be in English, right? Because it's a premium global content. For you also, because you're also looking forward to create dubbed content, right, out of this. So between this TG of 15 to 45, we being the second largest country who speaks English today in the world, you still need that local content or dubbed content will work better for you and will get you more stickiness and more consumers today?
So, look, just because we are one of the largest English-speaking country does not mean that, our consumption of content is also English. Yeah. We were surprised when we go on our social media channels and handles. We see that the amount of requests that we get for our content to be localized in that language. And that's where it actually started from. We heard what the consumers were saying. We started localizing it, in 3 languages earlier, the 3 South languages. We then went, to Marathi, we did Bangla, we even did Bhojpuri. And we keep expanding, right? Because consumers keep writing to us that, hey, I want to see this. I want to see this in my local language. I want to see this and we see the consumption patterns, right? They're brilliant. The numbers are really, really encouraging. And that's what's got us to do it, right? I wouldn't say that, I wouldn't claim that, we had this great vision. No, we just heard the consumer, what they wanted, and we delivered it to them. That's what we did.
And that's interesting. I remember when I watched Iron Man in Hindi, it was hilarious.
We have John Wick in Bhojpuri if you want to watch it. So that's
wow. So which is the language that you get maximum requests for on your Instagram or Facebook?
Generally the Southern languages. We get a lot of requests, for the Southern languages, and we do end up localizing in them. We did some experiments in Marathi also. We weren't, we haven't seen a lot of traction there, which has also led us to believe that they're okay with understanding Hindi, so that should be fine. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, Southern languages.
That was saying Gujarati guys understand and Bengali guys understand Hindi. So actually the half of the country below, like above South, we understand Hindi. So we're okay with both the languages. It's South where the major problem comes in.
Yeah.
So if I could jump in here, we've had some experience with even gaming content. In a couple of weeks ago, we did an online tournament for this game called Valorant. And we decided to get sportscasters in 8 different languages. For us, I think the surprise came from 2 different aspects. One, there were 2 million people that showed up to watch other people play a game. So at least for folks on this panel that are more than 30 years old, I know this is a bit of a culture shock for us. And then the other part was in the 8 different languages, the number 1 language that got the maximum traction was Hindi. The second was Tamil. And the third was English. So I think to what Amit was saying earlier, to his point, there is a certain appreciation for narratives and stories which will transcend language barriers. And then there is an opportunity for us to even build shows that are native in a native manner. So Comic Stand, for example, is a show that we build for Amazon Prime Video, and it's in its 3rd season now. We actually did a season in Tamil, because there is an audience there that wants to consume Tamil comedy that speaks to their themes and their stories. I think it's really what digital has done, has made options available to people to a point where everyone is an audience of one. So my mix of what I choose to watch, whether it's a Squid Games plus Good Luck, which are 2 different platforms, plus say another show that we did in Russia recently, which is in the Russian language, it appeals to me, and that is what I'm going to choose from a digital consumer's habit, right? So I think it becomes really exciting to then see how we're building for different regions, different countries. It's no longer just about, hey, here is the biggest franchise in the world, say it's, John Wick or Bond or whatever, and now let me translate it in as many languages. But as a digital consumer, we're becoming more and more picky, and we want to see things that are built for us, not just translated for us.
And in fact, you know what, when we do now, I remember when we used to do advertisement, we used to have an ad, a single TVC that used to just convert into different languages. Now we are looking at creating content for that particular region with that particular actor, whoever is the Tollywood or star there, and then we basically look at using a pop culture reference from that region. So in fact, that is something that we're trying to do, which we call in Grapes language as a vernac room, where we not just dub content or translate content, we look at pop culture references to create social content as well. Yeah, actually, that's a point. And this comes to a very interesting fact that the consumer today, right? Who is this consumer who's doing all this? And I remember I watched my 10-year-old nephew watching a YouTube gaming video. He's playing. What are you interested in? Why are you watching him playing? and this audience is really bizarre and brings me the question. And I would like to have Manish brain picked on this. Z5 is known for female audiences, right? So let's take a cohort of female audience, and you guys have the best serials, which all moms and mamas and aunties used to watch. But you guys have a lot of audience when I look at your stats also coming in from this age group of 15 to 25, not just 25 to 45, right? Who is this audience? What is the kind of cohort who's watching all the content on your platform?
So first, I'll contradict you. Z5 is not known only for female. Overall, Z content, which is the TV-led content, is heavily female-dominated, and that forms the top of our funnels, the 80 million users we spoke about. And that's a positioning that Z took, that he will always talk about empowering women and kind of bringing that out. Having said it, even right now, Shradha, if I look at AWOD audience, it is 48% male and 52% females. So it's a healthy mix. Yeah, and surprisingly. So these TV serials obviously get a lot of family viewing, and there's a catch-up audience which comes on the platform and views it. We also have a lot of live news channels, almost 70 of them. So that drives a lot of male consumption as well. And then there are, we realize that non-fiction shows drive a lot of male consumption. So that's on the AWOD, the free before paywall side story. When we come to the SWOD, which is behind paywall, it's actually a male-dominated scenario. Because also we realize that primarily the most of the paying audience for whatever the way India is structured, the credit cards, the online payment instruments are with the male of the house. And that's where the subscriptions come from the male. However, we do realize the genres there. And we do a lot of consumer research. The consumers tell us that, hey, it's like a buffet. When I'm alone, I want to watch something of a different type. But when I'm with my wife, I want to watch something which is romantic. And when with my family and kid, comedy, romantic, and family drama works for me. So the kind of content we create, because consumer has so many choices, it is a function of what they're doing, the situation they're in, what they want to consume, and what mood and tonality they want to kind of consume with. But to answer your question, the 15 to 24 obviously is consuming a lot of our non-fiction shows on the AWOD side of things. We see a good amount of female audience also coming 15 to 24 on watching their catch-up TV. However, most of the SWOD shows which are behind paywall tend to be above 18. So that kind of segregates that audience. And we do take, based on the recent guidelines, we do take kind of permissions from the consumers on what they want to consume and what they don't. Yeah, so there is an online consumer, 15 to 24 is kind of growing significantly. They have access to their best of mobile devices and internet. So they're consuming content which is available and exciting for them. Genres remain non-fiction, thriller, as well as the catch-up TV.
I have two follow-up questions, and interestingly, you said that in your conversation. So one was with respect to the fact that news, so we were having this conversation with a couple of brand managers last week, and we was wondering that what is cable being used for? So I was like, I think they only watch news. But then a lot of people also mentioned that we moved even to OTT platform to watch news, because it's not that we're watching a live news show at 9:30 to 10, etc. So we watch news as per our convenience. We get it on our apps. So we watch news on the go. What is this audience who's watching news? Like, what percentage of audience is watching news? If I have to put a percentage in comparison to your total content on Z5. So let's say 5% watches news kind of stuff.
Very interesting. So to kind of first clarify, we have 70 live news channels. So you can watch live TV, whether it's Republic or Z or ABP or any of those, as it's running on TV, same feed at the same time. So that we realize drives a lot of news consumption. Now, in terms of penetration, it is significantly high. I think SWOT penetration of news, and a lot of these are cord cutters. So these people, because they were going to TV only to consume news, now they can consume it with their Z5 subscription. So that's like above 50%. Wow. For AWOD, news penetration is kind of around 25-30%. But obviously, when you're on the go, you want to consume, we do create a lot of those snippets out of news. So what we do is, let's say 30-second, 1 minute of the latest news, whatever is going on and trending, and our editor team, they understand what's getting consumed. So they kind of keep feeding that in. So overall, news is becoming a good engagement driver and frequency driver for us. Absolutely.
Nice. And the next one, which I want to pick on you, is you said that if you're watching OTT with your wives, you would want to watch romantic flick. I don't. Can I have hands who watch romantic flicks?
No, I was being politically correct here. So it's the point I was making is that, hey, there are different genres. One is AG, one is lusty, one is romance, one is comedy, one is thriller, one is this. So the consumer is kind of open for choices. They say, hey, in whichever mood I am, I'll watch it.
For sure.
Say that again?
I'm very happy. I'll send this clip to her that, you know what, he watches romantic flicks with you. Okay, let's move, in understanding this consumers better, right? I wanted to have some understanding on the trends and graphs with Chandrashekhar here. Can you throw some light of, are these users only watchers when they watch a content, because advertising is 60% of the pay, right? So these consumers are only watchers, or also they convert into buyers because of the kind of ads they see on OTT platforms?
Well, again, it's where we are, right, in the whole OTT evolution. At the moment, the way brands are using it, and largely what we're seeing is it's more top of the funnel and middle of the funnel sort of advertising that's happening. So in terms of driving conversions, it's still early days, from a consumer cycle point of view. But from a measurement point of view, it's very clear that, I mean, on an OTT, you will clearly be able to track your entire customer journey. You can see whether the conversions have actually happened. However, having said that, there's a lot of potential here because the wallet share will shift. There will be a lot more that will come onto the OTT OTT medium as an advertising platform. And that is when newer formats will be explored. And as you get a more loyal subscriber base, a lot more could be done on the conversion side. There will be a lot more, true results or outcomes that can be measured from an OTT, platform measurement or an ROI point of view.
Get that. So now we know that this audience is basically in the upper funnel. We might move to the lower funnel, and especially with people who are behind the paywall, they might convert into something which is more of a lower funnel. But this audience, while India as a country is watching a lot of video, I wanted to understand from the audio perspective. And Siddhartha, if you can help me here, understanding that it's not just the video OTT which is booming, audio OTT is also booming, and you guys are a fantastic player in that game, right? Who is this audience who's watching audio? Because till now, it is very difficult for me to convert a client of mine to say that let's get a sponsorship for podcast, right? Or let's place our audio ads in podcast, then just playing video ads. So who is this audience? What is the size? How can we get them to start advertising with podcasts as well?
So very clearly, Shradha, the size of the community today that is consuming music is roughly 250 plus million. If I was to add in YouTube out there, we're talking 350 million plus, whichever which way. Okay. I mean, we alone 66 million users on a monthly basis on music. Yeah. Okay. It's very, very large. The amount of sessions that we do, the amount of repeat customers that we have in a music is far, far larger than appointment viewing that happens on video. Okay. It's habit formation. It is today a massive science. And between 4 players, of which 3 of us are largely Indian, we control 80% of the market, whichever which way. Okay. So it's an out and out in India play out there. Yes, we've got the global majors Amazon Music, whichever which way is behind the paywall, is part of the Prime family. But outside of that, everyone else is out there wanting to play the part. Today, Middle India is contributing far more expensive. So tier 2, tier 3 are growing at an exponential level out there. There is obviously a large movement towards getting users to move into paid. Amit had shared the larger issue with regards to RBI. In fact, because the price point in music is roughly, if you were to give and take promotions, annual packs roughly range between 400 to 500 rupees a year. And a lot of us, because of the way we were acquiring our users and they were not necessarily recurring opportunities present, we were whichever which way driving a very large portion of our customers into annual programs in that sense. Because music is very, very strongly linked to habit formation. A customer doesn't get up in the morning and he says, "Usko aaj gana sunna." There are ways to make that happen. Okay. Now let's talk about music itself. In India, we don't only listen to our music, we watch our music. Because our music, 75 to 80% of our music comes out of movies. And the way we build our movies is on the breakout of music as the big play. So that also has a very, very large consumption economy, which is linked to the overall film piece. There's a lot of work over the last 2 years that's happened in the non-film space, and that's also seeing a sizable breakout. It obviously came from Punjabi as a music language because there they first become large singers, artists, talent, music that leads them into getting movies, and that's where the entire proliferation happens of the overall funnel in that sense. In other languages as well, largely you're seeing in Hindi and in other languages, now non-film is starting to go out and create a niche play out for themselves. With regards to podcasts, one of the core influences of podcast has been the fact that there is a very, very immersive consumer experience that's being driven on podcast. But the communities in the size and scale of music consumption that happens tends to be extremely small. I mean, we're talking low single digit percentages out there. Because our volume of music consumption is so much that always will be a very small subset of that experience. But the consumer is hugely immersive. So if a guy is coming and doing roughly a 60-minute of music spent with me in a specific session, a person who's consuming podcast would probably be doing 2x or 3x of that time spent. What are the categories driving this? Horror is driving it. Fiction is driving it. Devotional is driving it in an extensive manner. And their massive habit formation is happening on emotional. If a person comes to listen to a certain following on a daily basis in the morning, be rest assured that person is going to be coming literally 30 days a month during that period. So it tends to become a lot more habitual in that sense. So all of that is playing within the overall music block. And the way we look at it is in India, music and video are joined on the hip because of where the content gets created. And in that sense, you have an ability to move the user from one screen to another. And the larger spatial web that's coming out, which is the larger movement of product from a UI UX perspective, whichever which way there's going to be a seamless connect with how users are going to go in and out of content formats.
That's interesting. And I like the fact that we're saying about that horror devotion are the one which is driving a lot of consumers. Which one is your favorite horror audio one or series or podcast, whatever content piece you have? I think I should just link it now.
So there's a very interesting a series that we've done, which is called Bhoot Lela. It's a very, very interesting. You should love to get you to consume that.
Interesting. Nice. So now that we are in the last 15 minutes of a session, I would like to move to the last section. We understood that how do we drive consumers? Who is this audience? What are they consuming? Let's understand how do you get moolah out of it, right? So how do you get your advertisers on board and brands on board to invest? I would like to have Gunjan here. Your revenues are definitely soaring. I need to be knowing how to make more revenues with you. I want to understand, why do brands prefer investing in content, branded content versus just investing in ad spots? It's easy, right? I make a TVC, I should run that. But why do you think more and more brands are now interested in taking sponsorships or in film integration or anything like that?
I think at the very base level, it is because our user habits have changed. It is no longer sitting in front of a TV and waiting for an ad break, where you found the maximum audiences. If everybody is on digital and everyone is choosing what their own news feeds and timelines look like because of who they've decided to follow or what kind of OTT platform they've decided to subscribe to, each one of us is deciding what our own media feeds are going to be and what we access, which is where I think being part of pull content versus push content, and to me, that's the distinct difference between branded content or being part of entertainment versus pushing out or broadcasting advertising is. Because advertising, by definition, is disruption. Let me come and disrupt your attention flow and tell you about my product or service versus, hey, let me be part of an entertainment piece that you would have liked to consume in any case. And here is a brand that's enabling it. And we've been doing this since, I think back in the day when TV was still the largest medium to reach folks, we built AFPs back then, right? Now, of course, it's us working with OTT platforms in various countries. So there have been, and I know there was a conversation about the upper funnel and the lower funnel. There are markets, and I hope that that's the trend we're going to see in India soon as well, where we've worked with brands to create long form shows. It's gone on an OTT service. We found a way to figure out who's watching that, pluck out parts of the show, and then use that for retargeted advertising, and then link them using the influencers that are part of the show, send them to an e-commerce platform, and then try to close out the loop like that. So I think there are opportunities. I just think it's about paying attention to how users are consuming content, what their behavior patterns are like, and optimizing for that. And whether that's OTT content, whether that's branded content, for us at least, that's worked for us no matter which market. For example, we don't speak Thai, we don't speak Russian, we're not speaking Hebrew, but we're doing shows in all these markets, whether commissioned by platforms or whether commissioned by brands. And the baseline principle is always, hey, stay close to the numbers. If you're able to see what the numbers are and you're able to work with the biggest content creators in those markets, because they know they have the general sense of, they have a pulse of the market. Shradha, you mentioned have a sense of pop culture context. If you're able to marry those two, you're going to get something that people will want to watch.
Interesting. So let's say, Manish, here, where you guys are actually creating a lot of build-up programs like, Interactive Kitchen. There was IG80, which is launching this weekend, the season 3rd, right? I find it difficult at times to convince my client to pay me like 20 lakh, 40 lakh, whatever sponsorship amounts for these branded content. What percentage of your ad revenues come from sponsorship content versus ad spots?
I think sponsorship content is still niche. Like you rightly said, it's something that if a brand wants to build an experience, tell a story, and use a long form content to kind of leverage artist and science of creation, they will do it. And I think Gunjan touched upon it, that if you can then retarget those users by other channels and figuring out how to kind of convince them to purchase or do a transaction or engage with your brand, I think that's a longish story. Most of even on OTTs right now, the award revenue, I would say 90-95% comes from ads. We do sponsorships of, let's say, contents which are not what you call as AFP or branded integrations. These are like that, hey, you take the top most watched series and you become a co-sponsor, which is like a very TV phenomena, which media buyers and kind of brand managers are used to. But yeah, that's what's driving. But what's working for the OTT platform on AWOD side is your ability to target. Then you can know that, hey, this 25 to 34-year-old female, she lives in Lucknow, she's watching it on a 12,000 rupees Redmi phone versus here is a a 35-year-old female who is watching on an iPhone and is in Mumbai and may have a different aspiration versus that person. So how do you target? How do you measure? How do you kind of define ROIs? I think that's where OTTs come into play. And then that's where brands kind of are able to measure the entire funnel from view through to click through, if at all it's happening, to kind of attribution to their brand. But it's very, very targeted, focused audience, which you can target versus spraying and praying on a TV-like platform.
Get that. I think we are at the fag end of the conversation. I would just want now, Amit, I would want Chandrashekhar to come in and just help me in what are the key trends that you've seen in any of your reports when you do these researches that really helps us in driving OTT as a key behavior, right? Like everybody should start moving from TV to becoming a cord cutter. So what are the 5 or 3 things you recommend should be done to do that?
Well, I think we discussed that at the start of the session, right? I mean, in terms of the most important thing that drives user loyalty or subscriber loyalty is the content. You know, if there is right content targeted to the right audience, promoted to the right audience, then you will definitely get that sort of viewership, and consistency. So that will then drive a very strong, loyal sort of subscriber base. In addition to that, there are a lot of the opportunities in terms of partnerships, collaborations, which can kind of give I see collaborations and partnerships as a win-win for both brands as well as the platforms, right? I mean, one promotes the content for the other. If you would do it on your own, you would do it yourselves. So today, if I have a branded content there, I mean, both of us promote that content, and that gets more attention, that drives more sort of viewership. So that's an opportunity to explore. In addition, obviously, there's a lot more interactive, engaging sort of viewership that to be had in terms of gamification, in terms of, and there are a lot of genres to be explored yet in terms of edutainment, infotainment. We're still exploring, sort of content which we all know, but there'll be unique genres that will come in. So these are some of the trends that I see that will come into this entire ecosystem and possibly change the way we are looking at content completely.
So thank you so much. I think they're very important points that you said. Content is ace, king, queen, jack, everything. We have Gunjan to tie up that partnerships and collaboration. Gunjan, you not work with 2 of the panelists. It's a big opportunity for you to start doing that. Then what we understand is genre, regional content will obviously bring that. And one thing that I really think Lionsgate is also doing really well is engagement. They've got Tiger Shroff, they've got Ananya Pandey to do AMAs, they've got live sessions. I think all those kind of interactivity and engagement activations can really help us in building our consumer stickiness. So that's the key highlight for today's panel discussion. I hope everyone enjoyed that. And over to you, Namita and everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Shradha.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
That
you,
was an
everyone.
interesting session.